Huh. Hey, Chester. How are you doing out there? Where you're from? Uh,
Hey guys,
hey, Chester.
how's it going, man?
Good.
From California. How about
California.
you?
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm originally in San Diego too myself, but I'm a full-time Austonian now. So
Oh, nice. That's like the hottest market, right? I heard.
yes, it is. I think I'm about to pick up a second house. Oh, this thing just blinked. All right. How do I how do I get this thing to reappear? Okay. Yeah. I I was in San Diego for a while, moved to Austin, and then bought a house in Austin in December before everything went crazy. And then I was like, all right, everything's going a little too fast. So took a step back and didn't want to compete with the whole country for properties. So we've been picking up stuff in Chicago and looking in North Carolina. So
Awesome.
what about
Awesome.
you?
Awesome.
Where are you buying? What are you doing out there?
Live with my girlfriend up here in San Jose, but I bought a house in Anaheim like 2.5 years ago. Just renting it out, and then now I'm just trying to, do this whole Burr method thing. I'm currently in the audiobook, about three-fourths done, and hopefully do it by next year. That's the
Yeah.
goal.
You
Yeah.
doing the David Green book?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
In the audio. Yeah. Kenny
Yeah.
told me about it. Kenny's actually, I visited him like a couple months ago, a few months ago. Yeah, in
Yeah.
Portland. So
We interviewed him at the beginning of everything, like in Sarah. He was
yeah.
one of he's like a second guest we ever had. So
Oh, nice.
yeah. One thing he'll warn you about though too is like Burr is not very easy to do right now in this market. What people forget is when you Burr, you leave equity inside of the property. And so you should be calculating your ROI not based on only the money you put in. You have to account for the equity that you're not pulling out. So that was just something, to consider, because like when you pull out the equity, you have to pay more in loans, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, you have no more cash flow, and like it's almost negative even.
Yeah. Oh gosh, you have to account for that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't. So that is the problem.
All right, I'm gonna mute myself if other people want to talk.
Oh yeah, no worries. We are all friends here. Don't worry about it. You can chat all you want. Who else is in the room? Where is everyone else? What do we want to talk about? I am totally open. Hey Lisa, long time no chat.
Yeah. New life update is I was MIA because I got laid off, but I got a new job. So now I'm looking again. So super excited. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, she was super helpful and put up the first notion for us, collecting all the information. But now I feel like she's even more interested in not being a part of any company that can lay her off again, right? Is that, yeah.
So that's cool. Yeah, so I'm gonna go to like open houses. Hi Chester, I'm Lisa. I am based on the East Coast, so looking in Massachusetts right now.
Why Massachusetts?
My parents live here.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi Danny.
Right. Okay. And we're gonna go live. All right. Everyone, your faces are gonna be on the page. Hope that's cool. I'm gonna make Danny a co-host real quick so that Danny can still invite people over.
On the page, hope that's cool.
And now
I'm gonna
it's
make Danny a co-host.
recording. Okay, here we go. All right, Danny, you're on mute. You trying to talk to us or what's happening?
Gonna go on the page, hope that's cool.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, and then, all right, Chester, you're trying to do Burr. Do you know which states in particular? Are you still trying to do nearby? Are you trying to go out of state? What's your plan on
I'm
that?
trying to go out of state. Yeah. I'd say I don't know which market yet, but I gotta finish the book and crunch up some numbers first.
Well, if you are interested, we are doing a major field trip in Texas. We're gonna book a whole charter bus, the Asian tour buses, and then drive people around and look at property basically. So
Yeah. I'll be very interested. Let me know the details later.
yep.
Hello. Hear me?
Yep.
Hey guys.
Hey Tracy. Hello.
Tracy.
Hello.
Is that
hello.
Lisa Trong?
It is. Hi.
She's
Hey.
back in action.
Hopefully soon.
George Kinney should be coming on.
Okay, sounds good. Admit 1, admit 2. Wow, it's like a Saracon reunion. So many of you.
Yeah, seriously.
Yo, what's up?
Oh, hey George, long time no see. How you doing? I got an assistant for the first time, and I realized like I have nothing to give her. Like I keep, trying to do everything, and now I have no idea how to delegate, which I feel like is such a hard thing to let go of. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that better, but
Stressful. Just gotta let go.
yeah.
Well, I've queued up some speakers for you, so you can give her that soon.
Ooh, that's perfect. Yeah, I would love to hook it up, especially if you got someone from Loan Factory, was it? Loan?
Depot?
What's the company you're working for now?
Oh, Pierce Street.
Pierce Street.
Oh, I can find somebody at Pierce Street, I think.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. But yeah, if you want to hook it up, I'll send Angelica your way. You can take the reins with her, set up the systems if you want to do that.
Yeah, that could work.
I got her for 4 hours a day, and I have nothing
Oh,
to
wow.
give her.
That's a lot.
I know. I thought I had more on my plate that I could give off, but I just realized I make myself busy, so.
What's up, Nelson?
Hello, long time no chat, Kenny. Kenny and I slide in each other's DMs constantly. It was a small joke for everyone who doesn't know. Okay, let's give it 3 more minutes while everyone else files in.
Is Annie yet? Where's Annie?
Oh, is Annie not going to show up? Ooh, spicy. I thought it was the first one she's missed in a long time. She might be busy today.
Nelson, you in Austin at the end of the month, first week of September?
I probably am. You coming to visit me, buddy?
Maybe. You got a couch for me?
I have 2 couches for you. So
Oh,
yeah, my
say
roommate.
no more.
My roommate, she bought this house. She's kind of bougie, and so she got like a temporary couch to hold, while her custom couch took like 5 months to come in after buying the house. And so it took like we have a temporary couch that we still have that we're using, and that's like the basement couch. And now we have like the real couch that people can sleep on. It's actually more comfortable than my bed. So unfortunately, you know, yeah, it's a lot more comfortable on the couch than my bed is what I'm trying to say. So
All right. Well, let me figure out these logistics and I'll
yeah.
hit you up. Yeah, I got like 10 days where I'll be homeless. So I gotta figure out something. Either go back to the East Coast or go travel around. I'm leaning towards traveling around.
You guys hear that? George is a bum. He's gonna mooch off of you. If he ever slides in your DMs, watch out. Tell him you're busy that weekend.
I'll just put it out here. Anybody got a couch I can serve? Just let me know what city and I'll be there.
Okay.
We don't have a couch, so where'd you get a cabin, George?
What's that? Way too many properties, not enough places to call home. No places to call home, actually.
All right, 7:05, I'll just get it started. All right, so thanks everyone coming on our weekly podcast as Subtle Asian Real Estate. Again, the mission, the goal of this group, we're just volunteers. We're trying to help each other through this like educational platform to sort of inspire, motivate, and empower each other to get bigger and stronger and hopefully retire early and not have to worry about getting laid off by somebody else who doesn't matter, right? We get to pick our own destiny, hopefully, and a lot of us don't really know how to get to there. And so what's nice is we get to bring speakers every once in a while, like George, who's an admin in the group, helps me run everything smoothly, even though it might not seem like it. And George and I have known each other for a year now, pretty much, right? He helped put together Sericon and you know, schedule speakers and you know the Zooms and everything. But fun thing recently, he got into the MBA program at UCLA, and in the times I've known him, he's gone from like 0 investment properties to like 7 units. And so I'm curious about how he got to do it. You know, we chat about it pretty often, but he's got a long list of things that took him from 0 to 7 in the last year, and one of which is finding partners and pretty much going out of state and full remote. So without further ado, I think George, you were going to take over a lot of the speaking for this one. And so I'm going to hand this off to you, and you can introduce your partners and how you guys are doing this all out of state and how you guys even met each other in the first place.
Yeah, sounds good. Awesome. Yeah, so for tonight, I wanted to have it kind of like a panel / AMA type format. So nothing too formal. We don't have anything planned, no slides or anything like that. I do have a list of questions that I'll go through with the guys. Feel free to chime in at any time with questions, comments, feedback, etc. But yeah, everything Nelson mentioned, we'll cover the kind of partnership side. I've also got some multi-units in Cleveland. That's kind of how this group came together, actually, because of Ohio. But we won't talk about that too much tonight. We'll save that for another talk, because that's like a whole nother mess. And I see Danny laughing because he's in it as well. But yeah, with that, we'll get started. Danny, Wong, and Kenny Lee, it'll be the 3 of us talking tonight. Danny, you want to go first? Tell the group a bit about yourself, how you got into real estate investing, what your portfolio currently looks like.
Yeah. I read a book just about how to state investing by David Green. I mean, I've always was interested in it, but never really dug too deep after just being interested. So after talking to a couple friends, they're like, yeah, just read this book, and read it within like 2-3 days. And I was like, man, I got to get in this. Started joining all these groups, connecting with my network, and then found a place in Cleveland. Thought it was good, cash on cash and everything, and just what I was comfortable with. And then pretty much bought a couple properties, I think I have 9 doors there. And then jumped ship to Tennessee with George and Kenny.
Danny, what was that book that you called up?
Let me see. It's by David Green. out of state.
Long distance in real
Long
estate.
distance in real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Long distance real estate investing by David Green.
Mhm.
All right, Kenny, what about you?
Yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Kenny. Yeah, I started in December. Also reading a book. It's the book that I read before I read the one that Danny mentioned. It's the Burr book, BRRRR. That one is from Brandon Turner, I think, or David Green. I have to double check that again. But in December, during lockdown, holidays, I think that's the time when I joined Sarah as well. So really big shout out to Sarah, just basically changing my life. This awesome community of people. Had the opportunity to basically go through that book, and I've never been this motivated to read a book growing up. Never had. I think it's crazy because I would go grocery shopping with my wife. I think some of you know the story. I think maybe Chester, Philip, you guys know the story. Shout out to those guys too, my friends back at home. I was grocery shopping. I mean, if we go grocery shopping, I'm like, can we go back home just so I can read? And it just, I've never been so motivated doing that, wanting to read a book. So that book really opened my eyes to the Burr strategy, because I've always been intrigued with real estate. I hear people doing real estate investing, and I'm like, how are those people so rich to even have the money to buy all these houses, right? And then I'm like, dang. So after reading that book, I realized that you don't need money to buy houses, right? It's all leveraging money. And that's like a really good strategy. So read that book, then read the long distance one, because I figured that so I live in Portland right now, other than doing flips and burrs here, or wanting to do flips and burrs during that time, I wanted to also do out of state, and I was trying to figure out what to do. And then I think then I realized I did some research, and I wanted to get into the Columbus market at first. And then that's how I think we all met, actually, Danny, George, and I. I met Danny first. And then I think from there, Danny connected all of us together. We started in a Discord channel and started talking every day. I actually talked to these guys more than I talked to anyone else in my life. So they're like brothers to me, basically. So yeah, that's how it started for me, and I'm loving it so far.
Big shout out to Discord bringing us together. Actually, what connected me to Danny was a byproduct of my Sarah admin responsibilities. I reached out to Danny to set up a Cleveland talk. I don't think I would have reached out to him if it wasn't for that. And then started chatting with him a bit about Cleveland. The numbers sounded great. They always sound great in the Midwest. But again, we're not talking about Cleveland tonight. That's a can of worms. But yeah, a bit of background about me, similar background to what these guys mentioned. Became a accidental investor like 10 or 11 years ago when I bought my primary, and I felt way too broke. So I started renting out rooms, started house hacking before I knew that was a term. I've been overseas for the past 7 years, making my way back to North America now. It's been 2 months. So I managed that kind of co-living arrangement even from afar. Accidental landlord. And then joining Sarah, I actually joined Bigger Pockets. And then 2 weeks later, I found Sarah, paid for the pro membership, Bigger Pockets. Best $320 or whatever I've ever spent in my life. 2 weeks later, found Sarah, haven't logged in Bigger Pockets since. Still subscribe to their podcast though, occasionally, and then read a ton of their books. So yeah, similar to Kenny, read a bunch of books. I think I read like 30 real estate / financial literacy books last year. And then finally put that into practice back in March. So closed on the 2 properties in Cleveland in March. And then sometime between March and April, this partnership and the short-term rentals became a thing. I think from when we first brought it up, when Danny first mentioned it, to us getting under contract was like 2 weeks or something crazy like that. Good thing and a bad thing, I think. And we can touch on that a bit later, kind of working through like how we structured it and all that. But yeah, so 2 weeks later on the contract, and I think 6 week close, 5-6 week close. Next thing we know, we're in the Smoky Mountains together. So yeah, with that said, one of you guys want to touch on kind of how we set up the structure of this partnership, how it came together, and then also why we're in the Smokies?
Danny, you want to go why in the Smokies? I think Danny was really the key pivot for us, I think, when it comes to the Smokies. well, I can just go quickly brush on it. You know, I think we heard really great things about the numbers. It's like the numbers are pretty darn mind-boggling, I would say, at that time, when we were just looking at, you know, COCs of, say, long-term rentals, even like in Cleveland or Columbus, trying to achieve like maybe close to 20%, and we're like, wow, this is amazing, right? Then actually finding out what some people were actually getting in short-term rentals in Tennessee, in the Smokies, we're like, wow, what's going on there? Because personally, for me, I'm born and raised in California. I live in Oregon now, in Portland, but I never knew about the Great Smoky Mountains, or never heard too much about it. So I was always thinking, okay, so the most visited national parks, and I knew national parks were blowing up. It's you know, a lot of people are going there. They start being more outdoorsy, and with COVID, of course. But after looking into the data, realized that, you know, if you Google right now, I think the latest Google page will show the most, I think visitor wise is like 12 million in the Smokies. And then second place for national park is Yellowstone at 4 million. So you see that giant spread, and you're like, wow, this is crazy. And then so we started then joining a Facebook group catered to short-term rentals in the Smokies, called the Short Term Shop. And that is where we learned more about just overall the opportunity, because we saw people post what their earnings were, and we just couldn't believe it. We're like, wow, this is amazing. And then so we ended up getting our cabin, and then George and I, we actually had the opportunity to go there and set up our cabin. And we were convinced that, I think this, because you go there and on a weekday, you see restaurants with 2-hour wait times on a weekday. And there's like traffic during the weekday as well, in the morning, or like throughout the whole day, there's like traffic. So tons of people going there. So yeah, I think I might have gone too far in this Smokies thing, but yeah, anyways, that's sort of how we started, I think, from Danny really bringing up this opportunity, and then we just started talking more about it.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the Cleveland Facebook group, and I met this guy, Alex Sabio, who's a big advocate for the Smokies. And then I also, at the same time, also met, I mean, he's in the audience, Anthony Cao. He's part of it too. Like him and I, we started talking, and we're like, hey, let's talk to Anthony. Let's talk to Alex. And from that point on, we're like, okay, let's talk to Alex. And deep down, I knew I wanted to do short-term rentals because the money is there. I knew I took a course on it previously, but I just never, it was about rental arbitrage instead. But I was like, man, the tax on that is different, right? Now you own it, now you can depreciate it and everything. So from that point on, I brought these guys in. I was like, hey guys, you guys want to do short-term rental? Let's go, let's pivot. Let's just get out of Cleveland or Ohio and just go to Tennessee. Like we quickly did research on it. I had a class, like I still had access. So then I shared it with these guys, and we're like, I mean, even though we didn't finish the course, but we had enough like material in our pockets to go venture out there. We joined like orientation with a specific group, the brokerage, and then we knew what was the numbers are there, and the numbers are there. Everyone are always looking for Airbnb because they don't have enough hotels to house everybody. They don't even have enough Airbnbs. So we're like, yeah, let's do it. Next thing you know, got pre-approved, and boom, we found a cabin. So yeah, that's the story at the beginning.
Yeah,
that course was a short-term rental course, right? The course you mentioned, that was the short-term rental course.
Yeah, that we were watching. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is the first time I've heard people talk about the Smoky Mountains this much. Like, no,
Yeah,
like I
for sure.
never even remember that it exists until like, oh yeah, the numbers, and then it's like, what? It's the most visited park in America. Oh, okay, I see. That makes sense. Oh, I see.
Yep. I was about to do a pop quiz, see if anybody could guess the most visited national park. We can still do a pop quiz. Anybody know what the number 2 most visited park is? Either unmute or throw it in the comments there. I going into it, I thought something in the West was going to be number 1. Yeah, bingo, Yellowstone. Second question. Any idea how many visitors to number 1 and how many visitors to number 2 per year?
12 million for Smokies and 4 million. So
Tracy, you're a cheater. We should have muted you.
Everyone has Google here. You can't just.
For those that don't know, Tracy's also exploring this market as well, if you couldn't tell. Yeah, absolutely. So Smoky Mountains sees 12 million visitors per year. At a close number 2 is Yellowstone at number 4. I forgot number 3, maybe Zion, something out west as well. They're like, so number 2 is 3.8, number 3 is 3.6, I believe. All right, so we touched on getting into the market, and then Danny, you mentioned about looking at underwriting deals, looking at deals. What do you look for in a cabin? Like, what makes it a good deal for you?
For us, 4 bedrooms and our ideal. It's big enough where friends and families come together, and then they won't like, let's say for instance we have four rooms, a family of like 3 comes, right? And then they stay in the bedrooms and everything, but let's say one family decides, oh, we can't make it, and they bail. So at least with a 4 bedroom, they can still split the cost, and it's still cheaper to them versus going into staying there at a hotel, right? They cancel anytime and whatnot. But with the Airbnb, it's a tad cheaper as a whole, and that's how that's why we come to say, hey, a 4 bedroom cabin is the ideal number. And just from a numbers perspective, right, that I know that people won't leave or cancel that booking, versus like a one bedroom, just a couple or a family. Oh, something happened, right? Oh, I want to cancel now, and then boom, they cancel last minute, and I have to find another replacement guest.
Beyond the numbers, Kenny, what do you look for in a cabin when you're looking at deals?
My criteria has changed over time. I think as we got better at underwriting. Right now, so what we use is we use AirDNA's data. So we underwrite with very conservative numbers at a 50th percentile performance. So we look at the chart and see, okay, so for 4 bedroom, 3 bedroom, what is the average daily rate, as well as what is the occupancy rate on each of those respective percentile. And then currently right now, our underwriting standards is that at a 50th percentile, we want at least 20% CLC. So knowing that if we perform half as good as the whole market there, you're still making 20% CLC. So to us, that's risk-wise, that is very manageable. So in our eyes, it's kind of hard to lose money in a way.
Could you explain what COC is real quick?
Definition-wise, I think I'm going to butcher it, so maybe someone else. But cash on cash, and then maybe George, if you.
Yeah, I should know this answer, huh? So for any dollar that you put out there, let's say we're doing 20%. For every $100 that we have to put out for everything, down payment, closing costs, legal fees, setup costs, etc., any dollar that leaves our pocket, we expect to have at least $20 coming back to us. So that's our 20% cash on cash.
Yeah. What else? Right now we are actually, so when we look at cabins, I mean, also just to add on to what Danny said earlier, there's 3 of us, right? So I think for 3 of us, in terms of price point, that's where we see ourselves being able to, feel comfortable throwing in down payment for. and getting like a 4-bedroom worth of cost of the house or a cabin. And then I think what we strive to get, if we can, is definitely a cabin with a view, or have or if it has a swimming pool inside, which is very expensive right now for those cabins, or it's just a cabin that's just very modernized inside the interior. Usually those are like the newer builds. And yeah, I think I mean we focus mainly on the numbers, but for me, the reason why I kind of want to strive for the cabins with a view, or like something that distinguishes yourself from others, is because you can imagine there's going to be more and more people entering this market, right? So there's going to be more and more Airbnbs listings in this market. So over time, I can just see, if you don't have a special product or more unique product, you're just like a regular cabin that someone can choose from. So I think just getting selected and raising that occupancy and not being a leftover, that's kind of what I don't want us to go experience.
Yeah, one thing I've heard that's kind of crazy too is like the people who like perform at the top level of Airbnbs, they like want empty rooms because people are willing to pay more. So they actually are like empty, 30-40% of the time physically, but they charge, nosebleed rates. And so they make just as much money, but have less occupancy. So their building goes through less wear and tear, which I thought was also interesting for Airbnbs.
Yeah, definitely. Danny or Kenny, you guys want to touch on kind of how we look at that?
Like occupancy?
Occupancy versus
Yeah.
ADR. So ADR is average daily rate.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, I think when we first got our bookings, or when we went live, right, it was just so exciting. That feeling of just getting your first booking is, I think when I look back on it, I'm like, us three will just all caps, like just spam the keyboard, like, oh my God, we got a booking, like it's just a really cool feeling. And then also we got down this sort of this route where we're like, let's just try to milk as much bookings as we can. There's like tons of people, by the way, that will reach out to you before they book, asking for discounts. And then we're always discussing amongst us three, hey, should we give that discount to that person just so we can get that booking? Because we were hungry. We were hungry to fill up our calendars, right? But what we realized is that you don't need to do that because that market would basically do its own thing, and people will come to you. So I think now we are more seasoned in that aspect. So, in the beginning, definitely, I think occupancy. I think right now we still, of course, strive for the occupancy, but we also know that it's normal to have days where you don't get any bookings. And I think as long as we perform at the 75th percentile in the end and strive to give, I think the main focus is, if you get into this business, I think you really have to understand that this is not long-term rental. It's more active. You're doing a lot more work, and you are essentially in the hospitality business, right? So you want to strive to provide a good experience to those people, because when you think about it, those people are all on vacation, right? And it sucks that if they have anything that comes up that is not ideal, you're essentially ruining their vacation. So you have to be conscious about that.
So one thing these guys didn't mention, and me as well at the beginning during the self intros, is that we all work W-2 jobs. We're all still full-time employees in positions that are not that, or how to say, our day jobs are quite demanding in terms of kind of like mental bandwidth and sometimes on time as well. So with that, like how did we decide, or what was our approach to the decision of self-managing versus putting this on a rental program?
I mean, that's probably the beauty of partnership, right? Like we take parts or kind of shifts on certain days, times, and we just like I was on PTO these last couple of days. George and Kenny just took over, and I was pretty much off my phone, off the laptop, looking at the information. And that's what we kind of when I approached these guys, I was like, hey, let's partner up. Let's do this. That way, when I'm on vacation, I don't have to be bothered with it, right? And And overall, I'm grateful for it, right? I'm grateful I can spend time with my family and still have all systems are still running. Yeah, I mean, Kenny, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think yeah, like when I think about myself, you know, I'm a big camper. Going out on like pretty much in the summer of Oregon, we would book you know, a trip, camping trip every other weekend. So usually squeeze in like 8 to 10 trips. And then you know, there's no reception there. So I think being in a partnership when running Airbnb, that's a huge positive, being able to just jump in for each other. Yeah.
Okay, I got a question then, follow up. You guys are all internet strangers who didn't meet in person until you bought the property. Can I confirm that?
That is true. Yep, I met George at the airport when we connected to Tennessee.
So how do you
Yeah.
feel comfortable trusting a complete stranger on the other side of the country to get together on a 30-year contract together? How can you guys talk about your vetting process for each other? This is, you guys can dish, obviously, but but yeah, like what were your thoughts when you say met George and you're like, all right, I don't know if I like this guy, like he's kind of
He's still not sure. I think for me, we touched on the Discord and kind of talking about Cleveland. So we came together not with the intention of getting into a partnership, not with the intentions of, you know, getting into short-term rentals or any property together. So in that sense, I guess it was like there was no alternative motives. We were talking about Cleveland and Columbus and Ohio in general for I think 2 or 3 months before the idea of a partnership even came up. So I think through all those reps, like we literally were talking throughout the day, every day of the week for at least a month. I can't remember the timeline, 1 to 3 months, somewhere in that time range. And then after that, it was a trust fall. I mean, we've got some checks and balances in place. You know, we've lawyered up. We have an operating agreement, which we haven't signed yet. So up until this point, it is a trust fall. Yeah, Danny, you want to chime in about the kind of the structure and the finances and all that?
Yeah, basically we've agreed upon like to do at least 3 properties in Smoky Mountains. One from each of us will finance 1 property. And then, yeah, that's part of the operating agreement. Like we will do that. And then I guess we'll look more after that, right? We can't qualify, so we'll use the cabin's high income to push to be on our tax returns, and that way we can qualify for more in the future.
Yeah, and to add, I think back to like just how we got to know each other. I think throughout. I think when you like what George said, when we first started talking, it was really just about, you know, just real investing in Ohio, right? And then after that, we just started talking more random, like as friends. And then I think over time, you get to know someone really well. And then we will also go on like calls together just to check in with each other, to keep each other accountable for all the other stuff that we're doing. So like George and Danny in Ohio, the stuff I'm doing here in Oregon. So I think, yeah, you just start building that intuition that, you know, you know these people, and then you sort of start trusting them. And I think it's going well, because I think we all bring different strengths together into this partnership. And yeah, so far I think it's you know, I feel blessed to get to know these guys. So lucky to even be as well. Also Sarah too. So shout out to Sarah here again.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys did the pandemic dating thing. I don't know if you guys have encountered this with your friends, but when people date in the pandemic, they like spend every day together, right? Instead of like say, oh, let's go get dinner like once a week. So you like skip through and like get like a much closer relationship in pandemic if you start dating in the pandemic than the people who like, did it before the pandemic. I don't know if anyone else knows this. I feel like this is the thing I picked up on, but
I was at a meetup last night with some of the SARE folks, or we were at a dinner, and we were talking about this, and the parallels between what we have going on and dating are a bit uncanny. Annie mentioned in there, it's like we got married in the pandemic. Actually, what happened was we hooked up and somebody got pregnant, and now we have a cabin. But that's a great segue. My next question is, so Danny's up in the Bay, Kenny's up in Portland. I was on the East Coast, now I'm on the West Coast in LA. I'm officially a convert now that I have this hat. What enables us to manage this? Danny with the thumbs down. What enables us to manage this remotely and maintain our full-time jobs, and kind of who does what?
I think so there's actually a lot of tools out there. We utilize a lot of tech tools. I think technology has caught up. Hearing stories of Airbnb hosts that have been there since the beginning of Airbnb. There's not many tools out there. Now we have automation tools. When a guest books, right? There's a message that sends to them based on the template we write. Also, before they check in, all the check-in instructions and welcome package. And until all the way at the end where we ask for a review. So I think automation really does play a huge part in it. And I gotta say, overall, I think doing it remotely, similar to like when you think about long-term, right? It's having the right teammates on the ground as well. So George and I, we were able to, and Danny as well, before even going on a trip, when we got the cabin, we started interviewing. We interviewed like maybe 30 something cleaners to find the one that we thought was the best. And also contractors as well, because those are the two really biggest players to really get you successful in the short-term rental space. And when we got there, George and I got there. Danny couldn't make it on the trip. We then connected with them even further, having dinner with them, getting to know them. So I think building that trust with your teammates and identifying the right people to work with is vital to really make the remote thing work. And I think just constant communication, even between us three, not even being next to each other, right, or not being local to each other. I think it's we're now on the Slack channel together, but just communication with each other and then splitting roles and responsibilities. I think we've learned a lot from that recently. I think we approached it in a way where we broke it down as if it's a real business, because that's where we want to take this. We want to take this to a real business in the future. We need to hire people to where us three step back and hire someone to do most of the work, and we just focus on acquiring more properties. That's sort of the goal. But of course, in the beginning, you have to think about how do we three split the work, because of course it's just too early for us to go too far or to go too big with that. So then we started, I think operations, we realized that is the biggest workload. Then we split it into three. One person's in charge of pricing updates, one person's in charge of vendor management, one person's in charge of the guest relations, as in messaging back and forth with the guest. And then we have someone in finance doing all the stuff and tracking all the finances. We have a guy that's tech, and then we have a guy that's marketing, so working on the listings as well as getting SEO and all of that stuff. Even a guy that's like design as well. So that person's in charge of when we have a new cabin, that person makes the decisions on what we do with that cabin, how to freshen it up. And then we also have a guy that's like a touch point for any legal things, such as getting the operating agreement in place, or even saying we get, hopefully not, knock on wood, if we get sued, right? So someone just as a point of contact. So I think splitting out the roles of responsibility is super important. Recently, we just through our experience, realized that for short-term rentals, it's so active that it's tough on that. So, like what I mentioned earlier, operations is the big part, right? So we're like, okay, let's just try to split it. But in reality, in my opinion, and I think George and Danny as well, and after we spoke about it recently, it's too hard to split into three people, because we end up butting heads. So we have decided that one person would be full ops. So full ops meaning managing the full listing, managing the pricing, managing the vendor relationship, as well as the guest relations. So we started doing that, and it's I gotta say, it's night and day. So that's my advice for those that want to get in as a partnership. I think that's a learning for us, because we've been always just talking about long-term rentals, and then when you think about this kind of partnership, it's actually a lot hands off than short-term rentals. So that's why we got a little bit caught off guard there. But after talking through it, we solved it.
Yeah, actually on that subject, is this all contracted, right? When you're setting up this partnership, what was the legal stuff involved? And subtle plug to one of our sponsors from Sericon. If you're interested, Stellahan has an app called Fractional, lets you partner with people more easily. But obviously you guys didn't go through that because I remember when you were going through the legal process. And but like, how did you guys figure out the partnership? Did you get a lawyer? What was involved?
Danny, you want to take that one?
Sure. So we approached it at first, of course, it's all by trust. And even right now, like what George said, we haven't signed the operating agreement, but we basically set up an entity in Wyoming as a holding company, LLC. And then we have the cabin under our Tennessee LLC, which is then owned by Wyoming, which is a pass-through entity. Then we talked about how, of course, as operating agreement and between all three partners, I think it's super important to basically set out all the expectations and think about sort of the end, right? What would happen if it's all the ifs. And what helped is that I think the Wyoming LLC provided like a document of considerations. And us three, what we did is we ended up going on our own, look at the consideration, and we put answers. Like Danny would have an answer, I would have an answer, then George would have an answer on each of the considerations. And then we will meet on the considerations and then further sort of enhance, or like just if there's consideration where we all three match, saying, okay, this is all the same, then that we don't have to talk about anymore. But we capture that because later on, you have to end up sharing it with the lawyer that's working on drafting and customizing operating agreement. So that's how sort of we got through it. And it was a long process. It's not easy because a lot of the legal terms and stuff like that is very foreign to us. Yeah, I think just making sure we have an operating agreement, that's super important, I feel.
Absolutely. I want to ask one more question and then open it up to the floor, and also ask Anthony and Tracy to kind of chime in with their opinions as well, because they're also involved. But they are single shingles, and I give them all the kudos in the world for taking on this endeavor by themselves. So last question, I'll point this at you, Danny. Oh, Annie's here too?
Oh, wait, say it again?
Annie's in here too? Annie Leung
just
is in
came
here
in.
too?
Yeah,
Okay.
Annie Leung just came in.
All right. Last official question for you, Danny. What's next?
What's next? I plan to build a business with these guys, and then probably eventually and use the cash flow to buy long-term rentals. Could be anywhere, maybe Texas now. Right after going to Sericon, I'm like, oh, Texas is a good spot. Ohio is not, apparently.
Come right over. I'm in the backyard.
But yeah, that's the goal. Keep letting my cash earn more cash. That way I can quit my W-2, hang out with my family, move to a different country for a couple months, right? That's the goal. That's always the end goal. But yeah, let's hope for the best and wish this partnership would go take us there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we got some questions coming in chat, and feel free to unmute yourselves and ask.
We're going to question mode, everyone.
Yep.
Just to get everyone on board. I think we're wrapping up some of the conversation here, and we want as many questions as possible. So no stupid questions, dump it on. This is the Q&A session, which I think is usually the funnest part anyways, right?
Yep. And preference for you to unmute. Let's make this a conversation, but I'll lead off with this question from the chat from Wakefield. How many hours a week do we spend managing? I couldn't answer this off the top of my head. It's just like a constant string of touch points throughout the entire day. Some things take like a second to respond to. Other things are fires and we got to hop on a call for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Some of them, because of the way we have the roles and responsibilities split up, one person will tackle it, but the other people just might need to be informed. So I think it's a bit hard to say. I don't think it's too significant though, maybe a few hours a week.
Yeah, I think it's definitely manageable, even having a W-2 job. I think what's most important is being able to identify what you're spending most of your time on and figuring out if there's a way to automate it or streamline it. I think that's what's most important. I think in the beginning right now, we are spending, I would say we will probably continue trending down, less and less time spent on short-term rentals as we scale and as we get better at this. But in the beginning, it definitely takes more time than what you would think.
Anthony, what about you? Before I ask you that, Anthony, the biggest lift for us was actually getting the house up and running. So me and Kenny flew out there. Danny couldn't make it, but even if he did, I don't know if we could have shortened that timeline. I was out there for 2 weeks. Kenny was out there for 2 days. Even after we left town, it took us another week to get the house ready and go live. And even when we went live, we were only 80% there. Now we're probably still not 100% there, but we're close enough to get bookings and make some revenue. But Anthony, I'd love for you to share your story actually on how you got yours up and running, because you were out there the longest by far.
Yeah, thanks, George. I guess really quickly, I'm Anthony. I have a short-term rental out in Tennessee with these guys. I was out there for a month, and it was quite a challenge because the cabin I bought was unfurnished. So if you buy an unfurnished cabin, I budgeted about $20 per square foot, and it was kind of true. And getting it running, once I came back to the Bay, it took me about, I would say I spent about 20 hours a week, just kind of making sure everything was good with my cleaners, making sure my listing was optimized, making sure I had pretty much as much as I could prepared to go live. And I would say there are cases also where a guest may ask a lot of questions and you're on the hook, or a guest may destroy a TV and you have to replace it. That's just the cost of doing business. But I would say on the flip side, the revenue more than covers it. So even though these things may happen and you spend more time, you're compensated for it. So I also own a few long-term rentals. And if I had to choose right now between the two, I would do short-term rental without a doubt. Yeah, that's kind of like a quick overview. George, I don't know if you wanted me to touch on anything else.
Actually,
no, that was perfect.
I got a question on follow-up. You mentioned some numbers. You spent $20 a square foot furnishing. Do you have numbers for cleaning also? And I guess on top of that, yeah, any other operational numbers you might want to include?
Yeah, good question. So for cleaning, one of the cool things is on Airbnb, there's a cleaning fee. Your cleaners will normally charge you a figure. Let's say it's like $100. You can charge $150. So if I have a smaller cabin, my cabin is 2 bed, 2.5 bath. So I have maybe 8 to 10 turns a month. So there's an opportunity for cleaner arbitrage there, which is like $500 a month, which is great. One of my long-term rentals, that's what I make normally on cash flow. And for other operational numbers, $20 per square foot. Ryan Panetta, he runs Airbnb. I don't know if you guys have heard of Ryan Panetta, but he does $10 to $15. But in the Smokies, you're competing in a market where there's a lot of amenities, like people have like indoor swimming pools, arcade barrels, pool tables, all this stuff. So the average cost per square foot for furnishing definitely goes up. Some other numbers, I think one call out is like, definitely check out what city that you're buying in and what it costs to get in, for the license, for the permits that are required. Those are pretty important. Sometimes you have to bring your cabin to code. That's why I was there for so long, was because there was all kinds of things like crashable handrails, height requirements, fire extinguishers, fire alarms, all that fun stuff.
How about you, Tracy? How far along are you? Congrats as well. Last we talked, you were under contract, but not sure where you are now.
Thanks, George. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Tracy. So I'm currently under contract for a cabin in the Smoky Mountains as well. So not as far along as I want to be. We just passed inspection, and I think appraisal should be coming back in the next week or so. But in parallel, and I think like just learning from your team and also with like Annie and Anthony, just trying to get everything done in parallel while we're under contract. So if you ever feel like confident that this is a deal that is going to come through, identify what's in your control at the moment, whether it's calling cleaners, calling contractors, getting all that team lined up and start the conversation going now. or even start creating like a mock listing so that the moment that you're done and you're in contract, or sorry, and you're like at the final stages, you're not starting from step one, but you're kind of already ahead of the game. And so my next step here is, after we close, we're aiming at September 7th, is to fly out there with my husband and just kind of get the cabin ready to go and meet up with the team.
How long are you anticipating on staying out there?
I'm hoping to stay there probably 2 weeks. I'm gonna have my husband stay there a little bit longer, depending on the work. Don't tell him that. I haven't told him that either. So surprise, Lawrence, if you watch this later. And to Anthony's point about just like permits, definitely do your due diligence there. I think my cabin is a couple blocks away from Anthony's, so I'm going to be running into some of those permit requirements as well too. So getting in touch with the city, understanding what I need to come prepared with, and then having those handyman in line in order to make that call when I need them to come.
Awesome. We're excited for you. Annie Long, are you still on this call? I think I actually sold you short. You might be the one that stayed out there the longest. And congrats too. Annie just went live a few days ago.
Yes, thank you. I ended up staying the longest compared to all three group of us that been there, just because my cabin's probably is also the biggest. And I ended up adding on more work that are initially, before I flew out there, I didn't plan on doing. But I ended up adding on more scope. But yes, everything Anthony and Tracy have said is very true. Have a game plan. One thing I would say is, and have a backup, a contingency plan, because the shortage of the contractors, how busy they are, you always need to make sure you have a backup of a backup of backup of whoever you needed to use. And also, when I first started, I was very mindful of people time to the point where I become on the shorter end of the stick. So you schedule, if you schedule people, schedule multiple of them, because I'm sadly to say this, but people have canceled on me multiple times to the points where I make sure that I have a backup plan. And if the first person come through, then I can always reschedule the second person and whatnot. I mean, it's sad to do that, but we all have a deadline. And unfortunately, we are not on site. We are remote. We're flying in. So we really have a deadline, right? So just look out for yourself first. Yeah.
That's actually really important. I do the same thing actually. And I do long-term rentals. I always have 2-3 contractors and 2-3 PMs just in case, because you never know when one person might fall through. So
Right.
Yeah, we're starting to deal with that with our cleaners. Actually, we were very, very bullish on our cleaners, and now 6-7 weeks later, and things are starting to fall off the rails a bit. So we're trying to course correct, but if we can't get there, then we've got, like Kenny said, we talked to 30 of them, so we got 29 other ones queued up, ready to take their spot.
Yep. Yeah. Professional cleaners or professional like Airbnb people. Like I know people with like 7 cleaners on call, just like a backup of the backup of the backup, So.
That might actually be a good strategy, right? To rotate cleaners, not have a cleaner dedicated to each cabin, kind of mix them around.
That's what people do. I think, especially since so Danny, George, and our cabin, our cleaner actually one day got into an accident. Car got totaled. Luckily, they're okay. But we had to last minute look for someone on our backup list, but we didn't have that person lined up first. But luckily, that person was available that day. But yeah, I think a good point is a good strategy is actually, if you say you have 2 cabins, do one cabin with one cleaner and then the other cabin with another one. And then you can even have each other check on their work. Yeah.
Can I jump in with a question back about your hours that you work? So you mentioned you all have W-2 jobs. First question is, where do you envision seeing your professional like core career going? And second question is, when I guess you move vertically up and more of your time is filled with meetings all day, how do you see your rental portfolio growing?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, my goal is when I have enough, I have a goal of like a certain number. per month. If I'm able to make that, I'll quit my job. And then from there, just continue scaling, scale to enough to where, you know, just keep scaling, I would say. I think short-term rentals is something that is exciting. I think if you are able to also quit your job, you get to dedicate more time. But like I mentioned earlier, I think ultimately our goal is to create we have it actually like a real company, right? But it's like getting to that place where you can hire people to do everything else, so that you can just sit in the sidelines, sort of work on strategy and execution on getting more cabins or just going to different markets, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was very ambitious in my W-2 job up until about a year ago. When I parted ways with that last company, and when that final paycheck hit my bank account, was kind of the eye-opening moment for me. It actually scared me shitless. But I'm still youngish, still in relatively fair demand in the marketplace. But I pictured myself 10, 20, 30 years from now, that probably won't be the case. So I actually took a year off, sabbatical, fun employment, whatever you want to call it. Took that time to really reflect, think about what I wanted out of life, and did all that self-studying. I mentioned all those books I read and all those podcasts I listened to. And I knew I had to set up alternative streams of income so that I'm not tied to just one large chunk of income coming in every month. And I think Nelson mentioned earlier, where one day maybe the winds turn against you and that company doesn't want you to be a part of it anymore. And I didn't want to be in that situation. So that's how I got into real estate. And it doesn't have to be in real estate, right? You can spread your money around, invest in other businesses, in the stock market, whatever it may be. And then to answer your question about how do I kind of balance my day job versus my investing. So I have a number as well. Danny does as well. Once we hit that number, day job kind of becomes like a hobby to me. So this new job, I've been there for 7 weeks, almost 2 months. It was an explicit or strategic decision for me to take a step down in responsibility so that I can continue to do this extracurricular stuff.
I want to give a shout out to Alvin Lee. I chatted with him the other day. He had a story about a former coworker who got laid off. And then all of a sudden the coworker though was like retired the next year. And he was like, how'd that work? Well, the coworker was like, yeah, well, every year or two, I just bought another property. And then, by the time they laid me off, when I was like, my late 40s, I had enough real estate properties that I could just, coast and retire. And so, Alvin's like thinking like, man, I was the dumb one, because normally he's the one who's bad at work, right? And like, he's the one when you go into code review, everyone's like, this guy, Alvin, yeah, I was giving you a shout out. He's the one where everyone's like, this is the guy who I don't want to deal with this code, but he was the smart one all along, and it's nothing wrong with enjoying your work. It's just, you want the option to choose to do the work. You don't want to be forced into it. So if at a certain point your manager changes or the company doesn't want you anymore, you're not tied to those chains. Yeah, right, Yik?
It's quite empowering to have that ability or capability.
That was pretty eye-opening for me. That's actually why I went into real estate.
Yeah, Alvin here is trying to go out of state for the first time, so.
Awesome, good luck.
I have a question on just like Smoky Mountains market and your guys' strategy. Congrats, by the way, again, to you guys already in there and people getting into it. That's awesome. With prices that have just gone up an astronomical amount recently, past year, do you see yourself still being able to hit the numbers that you want, or shifting your strategy, or how are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I actually wanted to ask Anthony and Annie as well, since they're just getting started. I think for us, we continue to underwrite deals. So since the first one, we've actually been in contract for two. The last one we ended up dropping out, and it was a great learning experience for us. Kenny touched on this earlier. I think it made us change the way that we approach looking at deals and what our buy box or credit box is, what our minimum requirements are to hit. And then we're actually under contract now for another one, which we are considering offloading. It's an off-market deal. If anybody's interested, maybe we can work something out before we let it go. Otherwise, we're still bullish on the market. I think for me, I believe fundamentally that the bucket will never drop out in the Smokies. And if that assumption holds true, then we will continue to invest.
Yeah, but
Yeah, to
you're
kind of
right,
add on.
Wakefield, regarding the prices. It's kind of one of those things where if you look at any of these properties right now getting sold on the MLS, 2 years ago is literally half the cost. So if you look at a cabin that's 450 right now, it's 900. 2 years ago. That's so, but the numbers still work. So that's why, I think for those that are interested, just focus on the numbers. As long as the numbers work, it works.
Yeah, I think just as an example, a lot of the properties that I underwrite, you can still get an 11% cap and let's say 30% cash on cash return, especially if you utilize a vacation home loan. So you can get in on your first one with 10% down as an example. So you can conserve some cash and you can Airbnb it and do very well. I think there are other options. The lenders in Tennessee I found to be a little more lenient. Like there are 85 LTV investment loans as an example. And I'd say that there's still some room for prices to move up in the sense that institutional investors haven't really gotten themselves really immersed into it. I think there's some rumblings and some folks have been mentioning that, oh, family office can come in and buy a bunch, but the logistics of setting that up for like a big fund would be pretty challenging. So I think right now there's still enough alpha to kind of step in and as a solo operator and beat out the market. It's still very doable. If you look at listings as an example, many of them are mom and pop that don't have professional photos. They don't have channel manager. They're just on Airbnb. They're not utilizing the property to its highest potential. Like they have old decor. They don't have their place optimized. So I feel like there's a lot of room for an operator to come in. Like I did it in my cabin and I'm seeing the rewards for it. So I'm after number 2.
I would have to say I actually consult data science right now for one of those big funds. It's pretty complex. They're already having a hard time scaling up with single family homes, and so they're not moving as much into like the single family home rental market in STRs. But the amount they've been buying has actually decreased because the prices have gone up. So they're offloading more than they're purchasing in the past.
Yeah, so I live in Dallas, Texas, and before I decided to go into Smoky Mountains for short-term rental, I actually spent a whole year trying to find a long-term. I've never considered short-term rental up until probably a few months back. I do have another long-term rental in Nashville, Tennessee, but I spent a year putting offer left and right in the Dallas market, and the number didn't really make sense. I just wanted to diversify at the time. And then one day I just, online and ran across a short-term rental. I spent a couple of months studying the numbers and it makes sense, especially with what Anthony said. You get to do the 10% vacation home or second home, which is reduce a lot of money up front. And there's definitely in the Smoky Mountain, everything Anthony said is true. There's a lot of rental that are still very dated. There are room for, you will always find a deal, so there definitely, it's a good market. I just went live, so I don't have a track record yet, but I did have one booking checking in today and another inquiry, and the number really, really good. So.
Hey, that's awesome. Congrats.
So, yeah.
You know what's even more exciting than getting your first booking? When your first payout hits.
I will not hop at the camera. I promise I was just gonna go to sleep and not gonna see what my guest is doing.
We'll see how long that lasts.
All right, it is 8 o'clock. That is it for today. Thank you everyone for contributing. George, Kenny, Anthony, Annie. Really appreciate all the knowledge that you're dropping, and even Tracy with her most newest one. So it looks like for some reason Sarah's moving to the Smokies, but if you guys have any further questions, feel free to reach out to George, Kenny, anyone there. Annie, you got any other announcements besides our major Sarah event coming up?
Yes, Fair Day, it's coming up, something that I made up within 5 minutes, and all you people seem to really like the idea. So if you guys are in one of those cities, come meet us this Saturday. And then also, don't forget, we're heading to Texas in November. So start asking for your PTOs and get your days off, because we're going to be heading out to Dallas, Houston, and Austin and check out some properties. So let's go, team.
Hit
Yeah.
me up when you guys here. I'm here in Dallas.
Yes.
I gotta meet you. I'm in Austin, so at some point.
Oh wow, there you go. Yeah.
For lunch. Yeah. And then of course, final plug again, fractional.app. Stella is actually in here. If you guys are looking to make partnerships and then get help on some of the legal stuff and even managing the distributions, you should check out her app. It's super helpful. It's kind of new. They got out of Y Combinator recently. They're in stealth, so you got to get into the beta. All right. So aside from that, thank you guys all for your time. I'll catch you guys in 2 weeks. Cool.
See y'all.
Bye, guys. See you in 2 weeks.